Sherman from America's best named city, Sherman Oaks. I do have three disadvantages. I can't be a full-time candidate the way some can. I can't devote as much time to yes, I think. But you have seen me at the Indivisibles demonstration again and again with Hills and even more often. Second, there are going to be a lot of candidates on here saying Sherman sucks. There's only one candidate here saying Sherman doesn't suck. And third, I've got a record. So that when it comes to issues like
record of killing 20,000 kids in Gaza, I think.
When it comes to crypto, anybody can say vague words. We need I led the fight against their main bill, along with Maxine Waters, the Clarity Act, and other candidates won't tell you how they would have voted on it because they're funded by the crypto industry. But I'm very proud of that record, and that's why I have a 100% record with the Human Rights Campaign, Planned Parenthood, which has endorsed me, the California Teachers Association, and the LCI. I was the first author articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. I introduced, along with others, Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. But what's most important is not what your member of Congress does, but whether we preserve democracy. And that means taking back the House, which we've almost done. I done far more than most of my colleagues, and certainly far more than my opponents, in order to help Democrats beat Republicans in swing seats. That's why I'm endorsed by all of the members from California, because we all worked on this together. And that's why when they came, said Sherman, crypto spent $45 million against Sherrod Brown. They hate you more than they hate him. Will you sign off on this Prop 50 that substantially changes your district and where you lose a lot of people who support you? Say yes, because the democracy has to be saved. Counting on the grassroots to get me reelected. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marena Lin. I'm a daughter of Taiwanese immigrants, and I'm a climate scientist and a public health software engineer. I am a product of District 32. I came up through the public school system here. I'm a graduate of Corrado Hills Charter High School, and I came home to support my parents through the Porter Ranch gas leak and various wildfire threats. I've been through every phone tree related to Medi-Cal, Medicare, and the ACA marketplace. I've won in getting my parents and my family healthcare through systems that are really difficult to deal with and through situations where people didn't believe that we needed help. I will fight to abolish ICE and abolish the current detention system. I will fight for Medicare for all, and I will fight for the Green New Deal and for it to be updated for the threats that AI poses to our job displacement, our safety, and our environment. All the values that I hold domestically, I also hold for our actions abroad. I stand against continued weapons transfers to Israel as they commit genocide in Palestine. I stand against the war in Iran and the war crimes that we have committed against civilians and bombing children in schools. I have fought alongside you, District 32, and I've been raised by you, and now I want to fight for you in Washington. Thank you very much.
And we're all here because we believe in our democracy. We believe in our government, that it should work for us. And to tell you briefly, my name is Christopher Ahuja. I have a small business out here. I've been active in our community for a while now. And the reason why I'm running, and I did run in 2024, is because we have an incumbent here who has failed policies for 30 years. You know, just to talk about something for a second here regarding ICE and supporting Democrats. I would never support Democrats that vote along with MAGA to support funding for ICE like Jared Golden and Don Davis, which our incumbent here has done. It is about people first. That's what our campaign is about. We have an unconstitutional, illegal war happening right this second in Iran, where hundreds and thousands of people will be killed. The amount of money that is being spent every single day, billions of dollars. We have a genocide that is happening in Gaza right this second. We have people in our 32nd district who are struggling to put food on their table, health care, We are in a bad situation right now, and there's no way we can continue with this sort of policies, legislation that has been failing our district for 30 years. It is a large, diverse district, and it is so important that we all work from the ground up. This is a grassroots campaign that we are doing out here, and people matter. Dignity matters. We need more housing. We need more support, assistance, solutions that are going to help working people. And when you have somebody like Brad, who's been in office for this long, and they ignore working people, that's why I'm fighting for our community. Thank you.
Betty, Dusty, thank you to the Indivisibles for hosting this forum. It is so great to be here with our Indivisible community. You guys represent the best of grassroots democracy, neighbors coming together to defend our constitutional rights, to hold those in power to account, to fight injustice. The Indivisibles here at home, across the country, have been on the front lines every day in our fight against authoritarianism, and you guys are providing an essential on-ramp for millions of Americans to get engaged in preserving democracy, which is what we need to do to save this democracy. So I was so honored, and I'm so excited to announce that earlier this week we received the endorsement of the East Valley Indivisibles, which was such an honor. My name is Jake Levine. I'm running for Congress because at an extraordinary time in this country, a time when we face urgent challenges, our community needs fresh leadership. I grew up here. I played on nearly every baseball diamond across this district. I learned about public service from this community. But as Jackie and I raise our little boy, I am deeply worried about the world we will inherit. Instead of hope, our kids see families worried about kidnappings and deportations. They see fires tearing through our neighborhoods with too little, too late government action. They see an unconstitutional war led by the same folks who took us to Iraq. They see crypto corruption and a lawless, rogue ICE and CBP. And they're entering an economy where the basics, good jobs, affordable homes, and an education are out of reach. I've spent my career solving hard problems. I helped pass nationally leading clean air standards in Sacramento, and I successfully sued Trump when he tried to gut them. I launched the California Climate Action Corps, putting 20,000 young people to work. I helped scale a startup from infancy to IPO, helping people save billions on their electric bill. I'm in this race because our community deserves affordable housing, a fair and humane immigration system, and new economic opportunities for working people and families.
Two questions, 1 minute. I'm most proud of the library. Very complex, but dealt with 16 billion dollars. Melted down. I solved the problem for you. Secondly, for work hours, with the Republican Attorney Generals have testified, makes the War Powers Act constitutional right for Trump. By providing no money to the contribution. As to my seniority, it's allowed me to bring over $180 million back to the district, money that we spend to improve our roads, to fund homeless shelter, to complete the backbone trail for the Santa Monica Mountains. And in seniority that was critical in generating the $14 billion federal dollars that we need, half the money to build the subway through the so-called pass. And to get people from the valley to the west side in 7 years. I've taken that on. I've testified for it, completing the effort in Congress to get that project with this.
I don't think that the incumbent here, Brad Sherman's seniority has benefited the constituents for nearly 30 years. We say seniority. There is zero solidarity for our district, for the people who live, work, and breathe here. There's a great disregard for solutions for working people. And I do have to bring it up because when we talk about housing, I think it was, and remind me if I'm wrong on the date, but maybe 2012, 2013, our incumbent here, Brad Sherman, he canceled housing for veterans at the Sepulveda VA. It was nearly 200 houses. We have to actually have tangible, actionable results with policies that are going to help our community. And I would introduce cost of living legislation. People are suffering just to put food on their table. And we have to push back. We actually have to have tangible results when we're challenging them.
Thanks.
I want to be clear that I have a lot of respect for somebody who has dedicated 30 years of their life to public service. That's a huge dedication and sacrifice. But we are in extraordinary times, and this moment requires leadership that is ready for the future. I would point to Robert Garcia as an example of a first-term member of Congress who is the ranking member on the Oversight Committee, has used his creativity, his energy, his dynamism to host shadow hearings, hold the administration to account. And unfortunately, our member of Congress has not risen to the level of chairman or ranking member on a committee, which is unusual for that amount of time in public office. My first bill would focus on housing affordability. We would fight for a national housing development bank to bring down the cost of building and help first-time home buyers to live the American dream and buy a home.
Sherman has primarily used his seniority to build bipartisan coalitions, to be a war hawk, and to support actions abroad that really do not reflect our priorities and our need for actual affordability in this district. He could be visiting every detention center, shut it down. Every detention center currently has a revenue annually of $100 million or $130 million to $130 million to house 2,500 people. That is ridiculous. And we know that they're violating civil rights all over the place. He could be elevating the concerns of our constituents who are currently in detention. He could be having congressional inquiries to each of the federal agencies and getting responses. In my first term, I would immediately introduce Green New Deal legislation that includes AI. We've only had one bill in Congress passed regarding AI, and in the state we've had 25. It's ridiculous that it's fallen on state rights. Thank you. Great. Thank you.
You know, we have to build affordable housing. We have to build units here, and more importantly, federally. We have to have that kind of focus. We have to have that kind of legislation. We have to regulate investors. And what I mean is when you have places like BlackRock who are buying out housing, forcing people out of their community where they live, where they work. And I go back to our incumbent here, Brad Sherman. When you take BlackRock dollars, where is the incentive to fight for working families? This is part of the problem. And this is probably another question that will be brought up, but we actually have to focus on working people. And when you introduce legislation for housing, also in terms of seniors, homelessness, medical, debt, these are all related. When we have seniors that are going homeless because they can't afford to go to the hospital, 2 days ago. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's not about seniority when you don't have solidarity. It's about values. Values is what drives our community, working together. We should not have people living on the street. We have to make it easier for them. We have to support them. I'll stop right there.
Focus, as Chris indicated, on housing. We have a few key proposals in this regard. Number one, a national housing development bank to work on the primary challenge, which is building more supply and bringing prices down. We are also going to work to support first-time homebuyers with down payment assistance and to provide a national renters tax credit, because people are now paying $2,500 or more for one bedroom. When Congressman Sherman was first running for office, the price of a one bedroom was $700 a month. So putting money back in people's pockets so they can save for home ownership is critical. We also need to provide resources to address homelessness in innovative ways that actually work. We have some great examples from municipalities like Redondo Beach that have integrated services, diversion opportunities, and mental health and behavioral health resources at the court, so that when people are falling into homelessness, they don't repeat and continue falling behind, and they actually get the resources that they need.
Nothing is affordable if you don't have a job. I've been a member of 3 UAW locals, and I helped found one of them against a multi-million-dollar union busing campaign at Harvard University, which is a billion-dollar corporation. It's $55 billion. I strongly support the right to organize. I know this is something that Congressman Sherman has strongly supported as well. And that's even more urgent now than ever. We've seen successes with SAG-AFTRA actually incorporating AI protections in their contract. And we need to do that across all jobs. We are a highly educated district. 20% of us have graduate degrees. We need to focus on being able to keep those jobs. We need to make sure that education is affordable, and the most imminent threat to our budgets right now is healthcare. We've already lost the subsidies to ACA. I've seen my friends who've already had their premiums quadruple and be on par with their rents. This problem is right now. It's not a problem to be solved 10 years from now. It is not. The housing crisis is absolutely emergent, but the solutions that are being proposed are on the timescale of 10, 20 years. Thank you very much.
Going to fight for working families. I have. That's why I have the endorsement of the AFL-CIO. Every union that is endorsed in this race. And I've got the endorsement of Robert Garcia, who's doing a great job on his committee. I chair the ranking member of the 2 most important subcommittees on the committees that I serve, and I'm the only Democrat to be ranking member on 2 of the most important, on any 2 subcommittees. It's proposed that we have a national development bank. We have what's called Fannie Mae. We also have Freddie Mac. Proposing what already exists as if it's fresh and new is the oldest idea in the world, saying you've got new ideas. What we need is the system that we have in California to have the government put up this part of the down payment and then share in the, and I'm working with the National Association of Realtors on this, and then share in the appreciation. I have, along with Ed Liu, led the effort to build 800 units, and we'll build far more, be 3,000 at least, for homeless veterans there at the West LA VA. I led the effort to end right to work nationwide. Now Elizabeth Warren has joined me and introduced my bill in the Senate. So I look forward to working with all of you. And the most important thing to do is to beat Republicans and have a Democratic majority. Otherwise, we're just talking about a debating society. And that's why I'm the one member here who's done that again and again.
Abolish ICE and all immigrant detention. I'm the only person here who, as an ordinary citizen, has helped free an ICE detainee in 2019. I can tell you how inhumane that was for him when he was fleeing political persecution and he had torture marks all over his body. He wasn't able to even see his family and contact them until I used my network in school to find his family in Kampala. It's absurd. ICE is grossly inhumane, violating every single civil rights. There's no enforcement of civil rights if we want to talk about existing laws that don't matter. And it has no place in our society. Currently, it is younger than Congressman Sherman's tenure, and he could tell us what life was like before that. My parents immigrated here before that, and we're part of the chain migration. And I think I'm a good example of the success of sound immigration policy. We can always do better, and I think immigration should be separated from criminality, and that's the main issue that we're facing right now. Thanks.
Abolish. This agency does not reflect the American values that we share. And those values, which are about equal protection under the law, which are about opportunity, which are about living the American dream, are what has driven me to volunteer nearly every Friday at a Home Depot to stand with our immigrant community and defend them against ICE and CBP. When I learned that Home Depot was sitting on LA City property, I wrote a petition. And we have petitioned the Board of Airport Commissioners to ensure that no unlawful and unconstitutional activity can occur so long as the city has a lease with that Home Depot. Several weeks later, Congressman Sherman, I was very pleased to see that he supported that effort with a letter to Mayor Bass. Thank you for your support on that, Congressman. We have to do more than just abolishing ICE. We have to articulate a pathway to citizenship for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, and family who are here without status but driving our economy forward. And I will not rest until we get there.
I would abolish what's not where you have the boxes on the organization chart, but what is the law and what is the mission? And before ICE, prior to ICE, we had an organization that Trump could have assigned a bad mission to. I have voted against the big ugly bill, which provided billions to ICE, and then I voted against funding ICE again and again every time. I have visited detention centers. I've led congressional delegations to detention centers. I have gotten people out of detention centers, and I have testified before immigration attorneys to get other people out of detention centers. The mission cannot be to pick up people off the streets, and you can call it ICE, you can call it anything else. If there's any agency in the U.S. government that is picking up people, not because they've been convicted of a felony, but simply because they're living among us, that has got to be abolished. And I know others have proposed, you abolish ICE and go to back to before. What we had before was an agency in the Department of Justice, Bondi would have run it, and it was run by her and Trump. It would be doing the same things.
To abolish ICE, that should be number one priority. I have been doing ICE patrols what feels like almost a year. And I know the incumbent Brad Sherman just spoke a second ago. I don't know what that answer was, but in terms of policy, you can't say you're against ICE when you're taking contributions that fund the ICE system. I don't care about the performative things. We're actually focused on tangible results. I am the son of an immigrant. My wife is a refugee. I take this very serious. We can't support Democrats that voted to fund ICE. And when you have an incumbent who has an organization that is helping them, that is a wrong thing. That is capitulation. For me, we fight back, and there's no performance words that we're doing here. It's about following through on the tangible action instead of just saying a word and saying you're going to support it. We're not abolishing Trump's ICE, we're abolishing ICE. That is legislation that I'll introduce immediately, and we'll have the coalitions and the votes to do so. If people voted for the Patriot Act, they should realize what they're voting for now.
Several policies. First of all, one of the industries that is most exposed to this is really part of the beating heart of our economy in the San Fernando Valley, which is the film and television industry. So many folks who, not only the directors and the cinematographers, but the gaffers and the prop masters and the costume makers and the restaurants and the vendors. We are in a moment where Disney has licensed its IP to OpenAI, and we have no protections for either human creativity or jobs, let alone the actual ownership of that content. We need to update the copyright laws to reflect these new technologies, and we need members of Congress who actually understand how technology works. I'm sure everybody remembers the hearings that we've all lived through with Mark Zuckerberg and social media and members of Congress who do not understand this technology. It is time to put people in who have a fundamental understanding. I helped start a tech startup in the software space. We grew it from infancy to IPO, and I understand how this works, and we need guardrails on AI so that they do not take jobs.
Great. Currently, a lot of companies are using AI as an excuse to have massive job cut. And that is a lie in terms of whether AI can actually replace those jobs reasonably. So I would support the WARN Act, which would increase the amount of time that companies have to give in notifying people that they might be displaced and give them an opportunity to fight back. I think, as Jake had mentioned, our beating heart of this district, which is the film industry, has already shown huge success in winning against AI, and that needs to be a template for higher education, for other white-collar industries that face displacement, often needlessly, because it's just at this point, it is just an excuse. We need guardrails on AI. as Jake mentioned, we need to look to the laws that we already have in California and map them onto the federal space. We have a great template as it is. California is the tech mecca of this country.
Great.
Talent agency. I've owned a talent agency for it was like I think 20 years, something like that. And we've seen all the things that have been affecting actors, off-camera, voiceover, and AI. Even though there was a contract for film and TV, we still have many problems in the commercial space, voiceover, print space. Just a week ago, I had to cancel a contract because one of my talents, they were going to use her image in perpetuity for AI. It could be licensed anywhere. And I think they weren't going to even pay a few $100. And so I've been dealing with this for a while. It's really important to me. And so when we're talking about AI, we have to have job protections. We have to have regulations. There's a skill gap where we need to make sure that people are getting training for certain positions. Sorry, I get distracted with the middle finger there, but it's really important that we have protections in place. And yes, in terms of our entertainment industry, this is happening at such a quick speed, and we have to be proactive. We can't react, and we have to help our unions. We have to help SAG-AFTRA, so they have to.
We need to require a slowdown in what AI is doing and look at the effect it's having on our grid. We need to have the copyright laws enforced, but beyond that, we have to worry about what AI will do in the latter part of this century, when it becomes self-aware. We need to. I have the only bill in Congress, and I've been working on it, talking about this, with serving on the science committee and getting language into DARPA research, etc., to make sure that we monitor for and prevent self-awareness and ambition. Because if you think you might lose some jobs to AI now, imagine when it sets its own goals. We are spending trillions of dollars worldwide, not only us, but Europe and China, to make AI more powerful, and we are spending nothing to monitor it and make sure that humans continue to be in control of this planet. And I am the leader on that issue, the only one with the bill.
And prosecute the people who are responsible, like Christy Nome, Greg's, whatever the guy is, the little guy from ICE. They don't get the free pass. So yes,
without reservation.
Great. Thank you. Jake.
Yes, and I will say we cannot depend and wait on the Department of Justice to do this investigative work. We need members of Congress who have experience prosecuting and actually bringing these referrals to the Congress for prosecution. We should not wait for the Department of Justice.
Great. Thank you.
I will do everything in my power to stop it, including congressional oversight hearings, to actually talk about who's being affected and what the purpose of this is. I will do everything in my power to stop this. I think it's completely unconscionable to not only have the young people in our lives look at the future with climate change, with everything else going on, and suddenly be thrown into a war they had no part in starting, and to be put up against truly unspeakable actions that are happening on our taxpayer dollar. So I will fight everything. I will do everything in my power to fight it.
We will not allow sending our children into these wars, not into these unconstitutional wars. We need to have a war powers resolution. We need to have a vote, and we need to work across the aisle to get that done in this particular moment. I served as a senior director at the National Security Council, where I worked to build coalitions, to build relationships, not only with our partners and allies overseas, but with other Americans. And, the old adage goes that partisanship stops at the water's edge. And there are so many Americans who are opposed to this war. It's unfortunate that so many Democrats in Congress, even those that have been there for so long, have been unable to bring even the fewest number of Republicans along to oppose this heinous and completely unconscionable foreign policy of the Trump administration. And that's what I will be able to deliver here.
Thank you so much.
I oppose it 100%. I will vote no for it. Will prohibit a draft. These things are unconstitutional. We have talked to hundreds of people in our district in a matter of weeks. Republicans, independents, Democrats, Green Party. Everybody opposes what is happening right now. You have to speak loudly, build the coalitions, and more importantly, enforce the War Powers Resolution. But if you have somebody, an incumbent, who isn't doing that, when the constituents are angry, the amount of money, just from an economic standpoint, billions of dollars that are our tax dollars that are funding this unconstitutional war that could be used for healthcare, housing, education. These are the priorities for me in our 32nd district. If you've had seniority in Congress and you still can't get the job done, it's time to move out of the way.
There's no way they can, they should, the country would not tolerate it. I've had my colleagues talk about they're going to get Republicans. The only way to get Republicans on board is to beat some Republicans. And I'm the only one who's played an important role in doing that. As to the War Powers Act, I'm the one member of Congress who has successfully and on a bipartisan basis passed the War Powers Act enforcement provision. You see, the War Powers Act has been regarded as unconstitutional by all the other Democratic presidents and Republican presidents since it was passed, because it relies, because you've got a constitution that makes the president commander-in-chief. But there's one area where Congress is absolutely supreme, and that's in spending. And that is why my provision, which has been enacted and reenacted every year since 2012, with Republican votes, with Democratic votes, and we've had attorney generals testify that this is the only thing that makes the War Powers Act viable. It prevents spending in contravention of the War Powers. And at the most recent classified hearing, you should have seen their faces when I warned Rubio, when I warned the guy from the Department of War, whatever it is, that they could face criminal and civil liabilities if they violate the War Powers Act. No one's ever been able to tell them that, and it wasn't true until my provision was adopted.
Thank you.
We can turn a blind eye to what is happening not only in Gaza, but across the world. Children are dying, civilians are being killed. This is not what international diplomacy looks like. It's not what humanity looks like, and it is an utter failure of our country's leadership. I think I'm the only candidate here who has actively worked on building peace in the Palestinian territories when I worked to implement the Middle East Partnership for Peace Act and spent time in the West Bank, building opportunities for economic development, for growth. And we now watch time and again the way that this extremist Israeli government condones and sanctions just absolutely unacceptable atrocities, war crimes in not only the West Bank, but in Gaza. I understand why people call this a genocide, but the reality is that as the ICC works through a long process, we need humanity now. We need leadership that upholds the highest standards of our laws, including the Leahy laws and the statutory provisions of those, and the regulatory follow through on the Leahy laws.
To defend itself, I criticize the Israeli government where they've made mistakes, and particularly on the West Bank. We heard Jake, and I yield him the rest of my time if he'll simply answer the question. Would he have voted for aid to Israel in the last vote, yes or no? And particularly the $3.8 billion called for by the Memorandum of Understanding. He'll tell you he doesn't want to turn up a blind eye, but he won't answer that question.
Thank you.
And he still won't answer. With me, you know what you get. With him, he refuses to answer.
Okay, genocide and maniac. Brad, you can hide. We charge you with genocide. Brad, you can hide.
It is a genocide and we are complicit. We've approved aid packages that involve billions of dollars in weapons that have been used to commit this genocide, and we need to stop that. That money belongs back back in our pockets for affordable health care, for our affordability crisis. It is unconscionable that that money continues to go there and kill people. I do have family members who've been murdered by the Israeli government. We lost 3 generations in an Israeli airstrike, and those who came back to pick up the pieces were then killed by a tank. It is ridiculous that we are still debating this, that our money is still going there. I would vote against any continued weapons to Israel, and I believe any politician, anyone in their right mind who believes in affordability locally and human rights would vote the same way. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe in our allies in international courts. They have committed a genocide in Gaza. I believe in that Benjamin Netanyahu. He is a wanted war criminal. We should change the policies for the United States to also honor that. That if he did step here in the United States, we would have him arrested. We have to hold Israel and these policies accountable for their actions. I would sign on to Block the Bombs Act. We would build our coalitions, because the truth is, when we talk to voters, when we talk to people in our district, they don't support this genocide. They do not support this blank check that the Israeli government has been getting to kill countless kids, families. It is a moral failure that our incumbent here has not taken a stance to say no more.
Brad supports genocide. Brad, I vote no on Brad. Get rid of him.
We'll introduce the Hands-Off Greenland Act. I'd like to see that passed, preventing the deployment of American troops to Greenland without the permission of the Danish government. We have to recommit ourselves to NATO. NATO is focused on Ukraine. I've been a leader since before the first invasion of providing Ukraine with the defense articles that they need, and will be a leader in making sure that we appropriate the funds necessary to turn Putin back and to prevent him from conquering territory in Ukraine. We have got to rebuild a relationship of trust and friendship with our oldest allies in Asia and in Europe.
I would reinstate USAID. I would focus entirely on soft power and working with our allies in supporting the same initiatives that they've wanted to. I'd actually try to follow international law, or get our government to and hold to account members of this administration who have violated it. And that's been clear on display for the last year. And USAID is so powerful in saving lives. And that's what our goal should be. We should not be literally just trying to murder civilians on the ground. That's essentially where our taxpayer money has been going and our federal debt has been going. So my goal would be to bring us back into the global stage as a scientific power. Over 99% of our FDA-approved drugs come from government-funded research. We attract immigrants, and they make our economy stronger because of the soft power. My goal would be to rebuild that locally, domestically, and internationally. Thanks.
Thank you.
Colleen. I think what's been missing, and we've seen this so loudly in the past 12 months, even with Donald Trump's first term, and this is going to take work. There's no quick, easy answer to this or quick solution to this, but we have to focus on diplomacy. We have to focus on soft power. We have to focus on building our alliances. We have lost so much trust. America's place in the world has diminished at a rapid pace. We have to go on a diplomacy tour. We have to meet our allies, regain their trust. This is so important. And it's going to take all of us to really do this. When you visit people from other countries, if you visit other countries, we see what people think of America. And we're going to have to build that trust day by day. And so we can get it back and replace what's happened with the Trump administration. And I take it really personal. I'm American.
Thank you.
Incumbent Congress have allowed and empowered a reckless and lawless administration to enter an unconstitutional war in Iran, which, among many other actions, has completely dissolved the trust of our allies. They've sat idly by as Trump has illegally enriched himself and his family in nearly all their foreign dealings through crypto and otherwise. If I am elected, I would work tirelessly to, number one, hold the Trump administration accountable for its blatant and illegal corruption. Number two, to rebuild alliances with NATO countries and beyond in the way that I did when I served at the National Security Council. And number three, to reconstitute and refund U.S. aid. I would work closely with USAID's former administrator, Samantha Power, to rebuild that essential agency. She understands the leadership role that I would take, and that is why I'm the only candidate in this race that she has endorsed. Thank you.
Thank you.
As I said before, I don't support this unconstitutional illegal war. That's the first thing. We have to start to de-escalate. We need to do this right now. We have to have people like our incumbent here. Did I freeze? Okay. We have to start doing this right now. It's so important because right now, the amount of lives that have already been lost, the amount of money that has already been spent. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. We have to focus on de-escalating and stand firm in these things. We cannot start talking about, I think it was a couple of days ago, where we're analyzing this illegal war. No, it's unconstitutional. We have to build our coalitions and speak loudly. I'll stop there, okay?
I would not vote to continue funding this war. It is not just reckless, it is a violation of international law and human rights. There have been civilian strikes on schools, on hospitals, on places that have nothing to do with war and have completely eroded the trust anyone has had in us in following the law. I would end it immediately and also ensure that our people are safe, that we can actually bring them home instead of the way this was started. And I don't focus on this war in terms of it just being a matter of paperwork that wasn't filed properly. This war is inhumane and unacceptable. It's a complete waste of our money and our priorities. And anyone who's had a household budget knows that what you spend money on reflects what you value. So I think we should consider that when we consider Congressman Sherman's record and whether enough money has really been spent on our district and supporting our residents as we deal with ICE, as we deal with very pressing issues when it comes to our jobs and affordability. Thanks.
Thank you.
This complete success would be democracy in Iran. Our district includes the largest population of expatriate Iranians. They dream of that, but I don't think we're going to achieve that. So we have to stop this war, because although I'd love to see democracy in Iran, we need to see democracy in the United States. And that starts with a president that comes to Congress and that asks for a war powers resolution that this president's been unwilling to ask for. And where in 60 days he'll be in violation of the provisions I got passed into law. We should be negotiating with Iran to get them to turn over their 800 pounds of highly enriched uranium. There's no reason for them to have it. There's no peaceful use for it. But instead, we have a president who just wakes up one day and says, I'll get the Iranians to unconditionally surrender. That will definitely not happen. And, or at least it's highly unlikely to happen. Well,
I noticed that Congressman Sherman may have left, but I would just indicate that I don't believe he answered that question. I think it's essential that he actually answers the question of whether he would fund this war. I would not vote to fund this war. Iran deserves democracy and self-determination. And we acted here without any clear goals, completely lawlessly, unstrategically, and with no clear objectives whatsoever to get Iranian freedom and democracy and self-determination that we all believe in. The best possible outcome at this precise moment is for Trump to end it. And we need to work then tirelessly to rebuild our torched alliances. This will require relentless coalition building, and we have to reestablish the norms that we follow. Just the language and the callousness of this Department of War talking about killing and end of mercy. This is un-American. And finally, I would work to legislate that before another reckless war is declared, the administration be required to assess the cost benefits that we are now experiencing in terms of skyrocketing energy prices, the missed opportunities on housing and healthcare, and all of the economic effects that we are feeling already day to day. But I will just note again for the record that Congressman Sherman did not answer the question. I would have liked to have seen the aid package that Congressman Sherman was referring to pulled out of the bill that Congressman Sherman voted for so that there could be a full debate and hearing on that package. Congressman Sherman voted in addition to that aid package for the codification of the end of U.S. aid, for limits on funding and aid for abortions, and to authorize the State Department that is being run by Marco Rubio so recklessly around the world. So I'd like to see a different bill and work to have a full airing on that specific question. And I will say, to address the question, in the last administration that I was a part of, there were always conversations between our governments about how the use of aid should be deployed. And that is the kind of diplomacy and partnership that I would seek to provide in working with Israel and working with allies and partners around the world to provide those important guardrails around humanitarian rights.
No, but going back to what he said, nothing has been debated more than whether we should annually provide $3.8 billion of weapons aid to Israel, pursuant to our memorandum of understanding. And you asked him, would he vote for it or not? And he said, oh, I want to pull it out and discuss it more. But he wouldn't say whether he'd vote for it or not. He wouldn't say whether he'd vote for the Ban the Bombs Act. He won't tell you how he'd vote on anything related to Israel, except the basic things, like we're all for the Levine law. Hell, I voted for that. It's the law of the land. Right. Now, as to so, it'd be nice if he would answer the question that you gave him time to answer. It's $3.8 billion. We provide it every year. You vote yes or you vote no. But also, he says he wanted to take it out of the bill that I voted for. I voted.
Okay, so
I voted to save 3 million lives by restoring most of our foreign aid. Okay. Those people would die if he had a vote.
I think ranked choice voting would solve the problem we're facing now, which is that second place will go on to the general and Brad, and actually afford voters a lot more opportunity to vote. The lowest voter turnout that we have in this district currently is the highest percentage Hispanic parts of the district. That is its own form of voter suppression. If the primary election has such low voting rates, essentially that population does not get to choose who would represent them. And we're seeing the effects of that right now with an underwhelming amount of support when it comes to ICE raids. I don't know if Congressman Sherman can actually point to the number of constituents who have been picked up by ICE and where they are in the detention centers. I'd like to know that number. I'd like to understand what he's doing to support our neighbors. So to me, voting rights go back to civil rights. They go back to actually making sure we have a voice in this democracy, whether or not we donate to his campaign, whether or not we funded AIPAC. So to me, this is a much broader problem of election integrity when it comes to millions of dollars, perhaps billions, being poured into elections to prop up people who may not reflect what the district actually looks like and needs from its leaders.
Thank you.
I support ranked choice voting 100%. I'm aware of the organizations and propositions that we're trying to get passed for ranked choice voting. We can see what happened in New York City with Zohran Mamdani in terms of ranked choice voting. And these things make this a true democracy. When you have the ability to pick your favorite candidates. First of all, that makes it exciting. It makes it interesting. It gives incentive for people to show up. We have an obligation to have young people show up and vote. They need a reason to vote, and there is reasons for them to vote. We need to have this as a national holiday. People shouldn't be trying to get to the job, get back, and rush to vote for their candidate. There's a framework called the EAST framework. E is easy, A is attractive, S is social, T is timely. Implementing that type of behavioral framework for people to increase our outreach, whether it's having events. And we see this around the city. We see this with different campaigns where we're encouraging people to vote. And as somebody who's been in Congress for 30 years, like Mr. Sherman, it is an obligation to focus on young people and people in general, giving them the access and opportunity to go out and vote. This is what America is about.
I'm not sure how ranked choice voting would work. I think it would add a layer of complication to a voting system that's already complicated. But what we do need is to have the top Democrat, the top Republican, the top Green candidate make it to the general election. The greatest travesty is that we're this close, and I've seen it in congressional elections, to seeing 2 Republicans on the ballot for governor. And so you have a state that's overwhelmingly Democrat. As long as we got a Democrat on the ballot in November, we have a real choice. And we need candidates to give clear answers. Are you for or against the Clarity Act, which is the #1 crypto goal, or you just want to talk vaguely about crypto? Are you for or against $3 billion in weapons to Israel? Yes or no, not pull it out and discuss it separately. The thing that will get people to vote is politicians who give clear answers and have clear records, and will allow in November voting to have a choice between a Democrat, a Republican, a Green Party, Peace and Freedom Party, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. So on ranked choice voting, yes, I think that this country is at its best when we are increasing the franchise, when we are allowing more people to participate in our democracy, and when we are doing that with integrity. My opponent, Brad Sherman, does not have an ethics of integrity when it comes to funding his campaigns. He takes nearly 50% of his campaign finance from corporate PACs, from the big banks, from the insurance companies that are denying claims in the Palisades and in Altadena, from defense contractors who are interested in these forever wars. I would also, in addition to ranked choice voting, advocate for term limits, for age limits, for a federal holiday so that working people can vote. And I would make it illegal for members of Congress to use their House office budgets, as Congressman Sherman is doing, to run political ads more than 60 days outside of the space of a campaign.
Thank you, Betty. I mean, we see how our democracy has been filling working people. We have seen the money, the corporate influence, AIPAC influence, the lobbying. And in terms of that, we do have to overturn Citizens United. This should be a #1 priority. Corporations are not people. And when you allow the corporate influence with corporate Democrats, with MAGA, you see the same people, the people that we're looking up to as opposition, people like Brad Sherman here. When you're taking the same corporate contributions and you're not listening to working people, people who are struggling, when you have the Sepulveda Transit Corridor project and you've kicked the can down the road for years and years because you're only listening to a select group of billionaires and not the people, the working people who would benefit here in our San Fernando Valley to get over to the other side. But if you're not part of the...
So I think the Disclose Act is nonsense, because that would just be a Band-Aid over the fundamental problem, which is that there's concentrated external money being pumped into elections that overrides what the ordinary person like me can actually do in an election to get my name out, to actually compete. How does the ordinary person, how does the average person compete against millions of dollars funneled through AIPAC, through J Street, through corporate PACs? it's ridiculous. It's undemocratic. So there needs to be a constitutional amendment, not just overturning Citizens United, but also banning PACs in general. It doesn't quite make sense to me why there would be national money coming into a race where this is a representative that's supposed to serve their district. There's congressional money that's designed to actually help constituents. And my goal as your representative would be to support you in your interactions with all the federal agencies. Thanks.
Thank you, Marena.
Well, I would echo, first of all, we have to overturn Citizens United. It is at the root of all evil here. But I would echo what has been stated here and just remind folks that in this election, you have a choice to reject an ethics that we have seen from the Brad Sherman campaign, election after election, taking money from big corporate interests that diverge from the interests of this community. Thousands from Edison after the fire, thousands from defense contractors and companies rubber stamping war, thousands from the companies buying up single family housing. And then on top of that, the super PACs that come in, billionaires like Sam Altman and members of Congress like Congressman Sherman benefiting from the elimination of caps on how much you can contribute to a super PAC. Unlike my opponent, and he will try to mislead people here, but it's very important to be clear. Unlike my opponent, we are not taking a dime from any industry, any corporation. We are only powered by individuals and people.
Thank you.
We need to repeal Citizens United. We need a better Supreme Court. We need to amend the Constitution. But we got to go further and have public financing, model that. The LA system, I think, worked pretty well. And I think the only person responding to your question by saying we need public financing. As to Jake saying he only takes money from individuals, yes, individuals in the crypto industry banding together to give him well over $60,000, including the same crypto bros that give tens of millions of dollars to defeat Sherrod Brown in Ohio. My number one source of support is unions. His number one source of support are the crypto billionaire bros. And that's the other thing I'll point out is Jake will deny it, but right now they are organizing a super PAC to exploit the Citizens United decision and to have unlimited amounts of money spent on his behalf. And he will not agree to take action to stop that. But he'll say he's against it. I think my time's up.
Thank you.
Can I get a moment to rebut of what the answer
Only
was
if I get a
entirely
moment to rebut your
dedicated to
rebuttal.
me?
You've killed enough lies about me already.
Yes,
As much time as
so
you
we
need.
didn't set this up as a debate, and so I'm sorry, but maybe in another forum you can. I've heard other things said about each other, so we're just gonna.
We should do a debate. That would be great.
No, but we didn't.
To be clear, the administration of elections is housed at the state level. And although we've seen interference already, like the way that the FBI has raided the Fulton County elections office and has sought to intimidate voters in some of the midterm elections, the number one best and most important thing that we can do is actually conduct our elections. That means supporting the administration of those, signing up, providing trainings. I'd like to see members of Congress helping provide on-ramps into that kind of civic engagement. That's what we would be providing in a district office here. And also, we need to be encouraging attorneys to be providing observation and resources in real time, as they are often trained to do in the conduct of elections. And of course, we have to reject the SAVE Act and make sure that never becomes law. It will impinge on voters' rights and reduce the franchise.
There are certain unfairnesses in our system. We don't have public financing. The Dakotas, 2 Dakotas, 4 senators, bad deal. But I'm confident that the votes will be tabulated accurately. The California Democratic Party, which has endorsed me, has a team of attorneys to make sure that happens here in California. Ultimately, I've done a lot of foreign policy, 30 years. And what matters to prevent a coup is the attitude of the generals and the officers. I've appointed many to West Point, Annapolis. They've been there for a while. I have had a chance to talk to the generals. I think our military is dedicated to democracy. I believe democracy will continue, providing we win in 2026. If Trump and most of the people in this are doing nothing to stop him. If Trump somehow wins the congressional elections of 2026, I don't know if we'll have an election in 2028 because he will have won 2 elections in a row for the first time in his life. That's why that's why I do so much again and again to elect Democrats, and you volunteers have seen me do it, not only in George Whiteside's campaign, but in Madam Gray's campaign, in Derek Tran's campaign, in David Min's campaign, and across this country. And you haven't, and George Whiteside's and those others have never seen any of my opponents do anything to help them in those close races.
Thank you.
This is an issue. This isn't something new. And now we see the militarization of our democracy, of our voters. Right now, what we should be discussing, and this is what is a priority to me, we already know what Donald Trump and the MAGA regime is going to do. We have elections in June. We have our November election. If we're not being proactive about this, this is part of the problem. When you have someone like Brad, who's been there for so long, he doesn't understand we have to do things right this second. There needs to be penalties. We need to have accountability, protections. When ICE is already planning to go to polling places to intimidate people into voting because they're afraid to go out because they may get snatched by ICE. So if they don't even show up to vote, we have to protect our communities. Protection starts at the local level, at the community level. Community is how we build things. It's from the ground up.
Thank you, Chris.
I really appreciate what everyone has offered as solutions for this, and I want to also add that we need to fund the U.S. Postal Service. That is the one way that you can make voting accessible to as many people as possible and to really solve this issue of uneven representation in our district. It is not acceptable that we have inequity in terms of who's able to have their voice heard across different demographic categories. And with my background in data and my background in working in human rights and food security, I can tell you where those gaps need to be filled. The USPS is under grave threat right now. It's not clear to me why there isn't greater fury over this, because it is a lifeline for so many people in terms of getting their medications, not just having their voice heard in terms of voting, but it would basically circumvent a lot of the issues that the other candidates have mentioned when it comes to in-person voting being intimidated. I've definitely heard this being the case already, but vote by mail is a huge part of our election integrity, and we could use all the suggestions that folks have already mentioned, but the USPS, I think, is a critical part of this. Thanks.
Thank you.
I've signed multiple pledges: no fossil fuel industry, no APAC. I am endorsed by Track APAC, opposing APAC. What was the other one, Betty? There was a third one.
Fossil fuel.
Yeah, we've already signed that pledge. We're not taking any contributions from any of those PACs. This is part of the problem. These corporate interests, APAC, all of them, who have funded Brad Sherman for nearly 30 years. Our district has failed us for 30 years. I take it personal. I've lived here. I've worked here. This is important to me. And when you're not listening to working people, you're not listening to renters, you're taking contributions from BlackRock, all these organizations, we don't have democracy. We have somebody who's beholden to those special interests. And so this type of pledge is a no-brainer for me, because values is what this is about. This is about working people and being there with them, not performative language, actually talking about it and returning the contributions that you take that have destroyed working people for so long, Brad.
Brad?
I've signed and I've always obeyed by the no fossil fuels. I do take corporate PAC funds. I've given them to candidates in tough districts, and if we adopted this, and the other colleagues did as well, we'd be down 10, 20 seats in Congress if I and all my incumbent colleagues would say, let the Republicans take the money, and we won't. I support working people. That's why I have the support of the AFL-CIO and every union that's endorsed. And I support the post office, which is why the letter carriers have endorsed me, as every other postal union, because they know I fight to keep the postal service working. The biggest problem in this area, much bigger than crypto and fossil fuels and pharma combined, is crypto. And the crypto billionaire bros, they don't have to give their money through a PAC. They're smarter than that. They just give the money individually, and they bundle it all together. One of the campaigns here as their number one source of money, the crypto billionaire bros. I don't take a penny from them. They're after me. That's why I race.
My number one source of money is from thousands of individuals across this district. We have outraised Congressman Sherman every quarter that we have been in this race, despite the fact that he has consistently taken money from each of the special interest groups, with the exception of the fossil fuel industry, I suppose, that you mentioned. I do not and will not take money from any of those special interests. My vote will never be for sale. I signed the no fossil fuel money pledge. And I want to clarify that although I have friends who work in a $1 trillion industry in digital assets and blockchain and new technologies in this space, that I have spoken with them and made it very clear my intention to regulate and prevent the kinds of scams that we're seeing all over the world that are enriching the Trumps, the Witkoffs with World Liberty Financial, the ridiculousness that Congressman Sherman has stuck his head in the sand and allowed to proceed under his watch on the Financial Services Committee.
Thank you.
I will decline all PAC money. I'm a climate scientist, so it's absurd to think that I would ever take fossil fuel money. I don't know why no one has talked about the AI PACs, and that's ridiculous. It's why is there no uproar over the fact that there's been no legislation passed through Congress to regulate AI? So it is a no-brainer for me. My campaign is all small dollar donors and family and friends. None of it comes from any DC Rolodex or anything outside of this district that I know of. If it's small dollar donors, it's folks who've found me on social media. But beyond that, I am not taking any PAC money.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a record. There are those who say the country's not going well, and they're right. But would that mean removing Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Robert Garcia, Maxine Waters for Congress? Who would they pattern themselves after, unless they're telling you that somehow they would be better than any of those members of Congress? Jake's money is from individuals. Yes, individual crypto bros. He hasn't sold his vote, but he sold to them that he would not take a position, which means he would not oppose the Clarity Act, which is their number one objective. I hope you'll contact me at brad@bradsherman.com and help us grow our grassroots campaign. That's brad@bradsherman.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Every issue on the platform has great personal significance for me. And as an ordinary citizen, I've done my best and been successful in actually delivering. So I actually co-founded a food security nonprofit that delivered 400 tons of food to community members in need during the pandemic. And this included immigrants. This included folks who lost their jobs. I know how to deliver when it comes to efficiency. I know how to work with local community groups. I know how to build coalitions. Organizing a union against a $55 billion Harvard corporation was no small feat. And we did it on the basis of issues, just like I'm focusing on now. At that point, Harvard was doing very little to protect its immigrant students, and we brought that issue to light, and that's how we won. I'm your candidate when it comes to being a product of District 32, and I want to go to Washington to fight for you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have an important question for people to consider, which is how long, CA-32, how long are we willing to wait for change? We lost my childhood home in the Palisades fire. It has been over a year. There is no plan for a adequate recovery. There has been no leadership thinking about the Sepulveda Transit Corridor, an idea born in 1980. Today, we have a draft environmental impact report. What about Aliso Canyon, which 10 years after working with Fran Pavley, we laid the groundwork to phase it out? It's back up and running under Brad Sherman's supervision. New wells are being drilled. Elsewhere in our community, at Santa Susana, a nuclear radioactive waste site that has gone unremediated for 75 years. How long are folks willing to wait? When politicians in Washington are putting their finger up in the air on whether to sign the Green New Deal, I was building one here in the California Climate Action Corps. When the government was absent in the Palisades and Malibu, I led a community response, helping to launch a nonprofit to help bring community together. These times require us to come together as community, as nobody like the Indivisibles knows, and to fight for a future that we want together. It is time for a change.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. I think Brad Sherman just left, if I'm wrong.
Oh, right.
No, he's here.
I think, right now, what we're dealing with is people are hurting. Our district is hurting. 32nd district, we deserve better. I became active in public service about 6 years ago. When my youngest daughter, she got sick, she's fine, but seeing what matters to our community and fighting for it. Brad Sherman has represented this district for 30 years with legislation of hiding, of fear. We've heard him right now talking about fear-based decisions. We shouldn't be afraid to make decisions. When you put your head out there, there is the ability to have risk, but that's part of leading with authentic leadership, moral leadership, Brad. We have to focus on the future. We can't just kind of hope things will work out. That is a long of I will fight for your district because I am part of it. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Well, that